What's going on, guys? Winner Kills here, and welcome to a brand new test hand video. Today we're going to be taking a look at my Marincess deck, which is actually going to be the next deck that I cover on One Deck One Month. And if you haven't seen One Deck One Month, if you don't know what it is, I'll leave a link to an episode up here in the top right for you to check out. I highly recommend it. I think it is some of my best work. But I'm really excited to show you guys how this deck operates. This is a deck that I've been wanting to play in a tournament setting for a long time, but never really had a good enough reason to until now anyways. And the past couple of weeks that I've been playing this deck, trying to learn it and trying to get it to be competitive, I've been having a lot of fun, and I'm realizing this deck actually has a decent amount of potential as sort of a rogue mid-range control deck. As you guys can also tell, this is a re-upload. I uploaded a test hand video yesterday for Marincess, but I decided to take it down because I made one sort of fatal mistake when it came to the field spell, and I just do want to apologize for any confusion or misinformation I may have spread. I said that this card states that any card link summoned using Marincess Crystal Heart is unaffected by card effects, and that is not entirely true. I had it mixed up because this card actually says any monster link summon in the extra monster zone using this card is unaffected by card effects. And that was mainly problematic because I had a combo worked up that I thought would give you an unaffected transcode / access code. I was under the assumption that Crystal Heart protected anything that was link summoned using it as material while the field spell up, but again, that is not entirely true. And I wanted to apologize, take the video down, and refilm it to address that error. Because it wasn't like a super huge error, but it's not correct, and I didn't feel right leaving it up. So I wanted to remake this video. So if you're rewatching this, I do really appreciate it. I wanted to make an entirely new video instead of editing the last one and re-uploading it. So this is basically going to be a brand new video. And before we get started, I want to mention a quick shout out to Imperium Duelist. If you guys are interested in these sleeves here, I know a lot of people ask about them. They are from Imperium Duelist. Link down in the description below to their site. They're actually currently out of stock, but you can sign up to their newsletter, I believe, to get notified when they do restock. So if you want to be one of the first ones to know, I would do that now sooner than later, because when they come back, they're probably going to sell out very, very quick. And if you want to get them for 10% off alongside anything else on their site, don't forget to use my discount code WinnerKills10 off at checkout to support the channel and save some money in the process. And if you guys are buying anything on TCG Player, please do not forget to use my affiliate link down at the description below. If you guys shop and check out using that link, a small bit of the revenue from your purchase will go right back in the channel, and it helps out a ton. And if you want access to other exclusive members-only content, consider becoming a member of the channel today by clicking the blue join button or at the link down below if you do not see one of those below the video player. So yeah, deck is shuffled. Let's go ahead and draw into our first hand here to see if I can't showcase to you guys sort of how this deck operates on a very basic level, what our sort of standard combo looks like, and what our sort of like unaffected better combo looks like. And it looks like here we're going to be able to showcase that 100%, which you really do love to see. Now, in order to do our full unaffected combo, you need to see any Marincess monster plus a water extender. It could be Silent Angler, could be Scripton, could be Ready/Instant Fusion. It doesn't really matter what it is. Or it could be a Marincess plus the Seahorse, or a Marincess plus like Mandarin. I don't think it really makes too big of a difference. Now, for this hand, we could talk about what happens if our blue Tang gets hand trapped, but just to make things a little simple, I'm just going to go through the standard combo where we end on our unaffected sort of towers-like boss monster. But we're going to normal summon blue Tang, and we're going to activate our effect on summon to send any Marincess monster from our deck to our grave, and we're going to send Seahorse. And one good reason to know, and one good way to tell which card you want to send off of your blue Tang is if you open Seahorse, send Mandarin. If you open Mandarin, send Seahorse. If you didn't open any other Marincess monsters, always send Seahorse. And now we're going to link off our blue Tang into a link 1, which is going to be the blue Slug. And now we have some chain links to resolve. When this card is link summoned, we can add back a Marincess monster in our graveyard except itself. And if this card is sent to the grave as link material for a water monster, we can excavate the top 3 cards of our deck and take one Marincess card we find there, and the rest get shuffled back in. So we're going to go Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2. Slug will target the Seahorse, and that is going to do a good job at chain blocking a card like Go Spell. So we're going to reveal the top 3. I wouldn't expect to get anything like I just got here. It's probably going to miss most of the time, but, you know, if you can get a wave or like a Mandarin off of it, good for you. It's definitely a nice little bonus, and we got lucky here by opening up a copy of Wave alongside Meister and Valor. So now what we're going to do is special summon Seahorse to a zone a Marincess Link monster points to, using your effect, which by the way is an inherent summon and does not start a chain, kind of similar to like Machina Fortress, if you will. Now we're going to go ahead and link that Seahorse into Sea Angel. And Sea Angel on summon is going to add a Marincess spell from our deck to our hand. So we're going to go ahead and grab the card of the hour, if you will, the controversial card that I apparently can't read. And I mean, I literally can't read it right now because it's in French. But I guess I couldn't read it all the times before. So we're going to add the field spell, and I'll put a picture of it up on the screen if you want to know what it does, just so there is no confusion. But we're going to activate our field spell. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and link both the Sea Angel and the Slug into a copy of Crystal Heart. And from here, we're going to use our water extender in hand, which happens to be Silent Angler, and we're going to summon it to the field while we control a water monster. And after we summon it that way, we cannot summon any more monsters from the hand. So that's why we wanted to summon the Seahorse earlier, as opposed to summoning the Silent Angler. Now we're going to link both of those into Marincess Coral Anemone, which you guys are probably familiar with. We'll activate Anemone Engrave to target the Crystal Heart to revive, and then we will link these two into a Link 4. And by the way, that Anemone was unaffected by card effects because it was Link summoned using Crystal Heart, and it was in the extra monster zone. Now, last but not least, we are going to link summon into the Great Bubble Reef, and we have some chain links to activate here. We have Chainlink 1 Anemone, Chainlink 2 the Battle Ocean. So Anemone has quite a few add back targets. You can add back any Marincess card in our grave. And here, normally with this setup, if I have Seahorse and Blue Tang, I add back the Blue Tang, even though we already have one in hand, because the Seahorse in grave can act as an extender next turn. And this is a much more solid normal summon. It can get us more extenders in the form of Mandarin next turn. So leaving this in grave is much better, especially if you can add this back instead. And now as far as what we want to equip to our Bubble Reef, what I was doing in the previous version of this video is looking a little bit different now. I'm going to equip the Crystal Heart, the Sea Angel, and the Slug, and we're going to leave the Anemone in the grave so we can use Bubble Reef's effect in our standby phase, or our opponent's standby phase, to banish a water in our grave to draw one card. Now, normally I would have banished this, but since, you know, whatever we link summon in general is not unaffected by card effects, if we use Crystal Heart, again, it has to be in the extra monster zone, it's much more worthwhile to bring back the Coral Anemone as your link to help climb into transcode / access code, because you can get a card back off of your enemy in the process if you need to. So yeah, that pretty much does it for our turn. This card is currently at 4,600 because of the field spell, and then during our opponent's turn, we're going to banish a water to draw, and we end up drawing into another wave. So as it stands, we have 4 interruptions in our hand, and this right here, in a nutshell, is what this deck tries to do. And obviously, whether or not your opponent has a really high impact hand trap is another story. Cards like Nibiru and Gamma hurt this deck quite a bit, if you couldn't tell already. But currently this is unaffected by card effects because we have the field spell up. We have 2 basically imperms in our hand that are not once per turn, and since we control a Link 3 or higher monster, we can activate this from hand. And since we have a Link 2 or higher Marincess monster, once this card resolves, all monsters we currently control are unaffected by our opponent's card effects until the end of the turn, and that goes for any card whatsoever. And then obviously Valor, Meister are just really good on their own. And then on our turn, we draw for turn, banish another water to draw. This will gain another 600 because each time a monster is banished face up, it gains 600 attack for each, so putting it up to 5,200 currently. Now, I am going to show you guys how to basically just OTK with this deck as well. Bubble Reef has a third effect, which allows us to discard a water card to summon back one of our banished Marincess monsters. And right now, since we have the extra Angler, I'm just going to discard the Angler to bring out the Coral Anemone. And we'll commit our normal summon of Blue Tang. We'll activate Blue Tang's effect here since, you know, we might as well. And then it'll also allow us to get Mandarin out of the deck to be able to use as an extender, which we could technically use right now, but we don't need to. At least not yet anyways. And now we're going to link these off into a copy of Transcode Talker. And we'll activate Transcode Talker. to bring back the Anemone, and we could also add back the Seahorse or the Tang if we wanted to when we linked it off. And then we'll go ahead and go right into the big boy Access Code Talker, who will target the transcode to make it go up to 5,300. Then we can banish both of these to pop 2 cards our opponent controls, and this will gain another 600 for each card that we banished, getting this up to 53, and then this would be at like 64, I think. So 53 plus 64 into an open board is going to be game right then and there. Plus we had, you know, like 4 hand traps for our opponent on their turn, so odds are they did not establish full combo. Most decks, meta or not, are going to have a very hard time doing anything through 2+ hand traps. So that is sort of your standard unaffected combo in a nutshell. I'm going to reset the deck, and I'll see what else I can show off to you guys about this deck. Alright, deck has been shuffled. Let's go ahead and draw into our next hand here to see what we can showcase. We have Instant Fusion, Silent Angler, Signet Mining, and a 1-for-1. So again here, with just these 2 cards, we have our full unaffected combo, which is exactly what we want to see. So with this hand, since we open up 1-for-1, I kind of want to show you guys how just 1-for-1 on its own is your full combo. So we'll start with the 1-for-1, discarding the Silent Angler, and that is going to go ahead and summon not Effect Veiler, not 4-Mud Skipper, but a copy of Marincess Mandarin from our deck. Now, obviously, if we were worried about Ash, we could just go ahead and activate the Instant Fusion first to bring out the Millenniumized Restrict. Then we would go ahead and 1-for-1, obviously. But from here, we're going to go ahead and link still into a copy of Slug. Slug will add back the Mandarin, and then we'll commit our normal summon to the Mandarin, which will then go into Sea Angel, and Sea Angel will activate her effect to go ahead and add a Marincess spell. Might as well say add Marincess Battle Ocean, though, because there is actually no other Marincess spells currently in the archetype, which I find funny. And then from here, we're going to activate the Mandarin Engrave, targeting the Sea Angel to summon this to a zone a Marincess Link monster points to. Then we're going to activate the Battle Ocean. Mandarin will get banished once it leaves the field after we've used its effect. And we'll summon out the Crystal Heart. We'll link both of these into another link 2 known as Anemone, who is currently unaffected by our opponent's card effects. Then we'll activate Anemone to bring this back. And then we'll link these into our link 4, the Great Bubble Reef. And again, we'll activate our chain links. So as for cards I would put back off the Anemone, it's probably going to be either the Sea Angel or the Crystal Heart. I'd mainly put this back because of the arrow scheme that it has. A lot of our Marincess monsters really only ever point down, and this card is unique that it can point off to the left. So this can make, you know, resolving like Mandarins or Seahorses later on much easier. If they shuffle this back in the deck, we can just go ahead and fetch it again if we need to. So having that back in the extra deck for that reason is nice. But also putting this card back too is something that I like to do occasionally. Just because if we want to like get rid of our Bubble Reef and make a different rank 4, like Wonderheart, or if we want to make Marbled Rock and we want to make it unaffected by card effects, we're going to need another copy of this in the extra deck, and it's going to be a lot easier to just link into another one of these than having to try to get it back off of an enemy, because that's just more steps. So for the sake of this video, I'm just going to put back the Crystal Heart, and then we're going to equip the Sea Angel and the Slug, and I'm actually going to leave the Anemone in grave, obviously, because we want to be able to banish that to draw, and then be able to have as a target to revive next turn. End phase, this will die because of Instant Fusion, and then we'll banish and draw during our opponent's standby phase. And we actually draw a hand trap there, which is really nice. Then since a monster was banished face up, we draw a card, or it gains 600 rather, and then we bell them, right? Our turn we draw, we banish another water to draw, and we draw into another bell. Man, bell is glued to our hand today. And then we'd obviously summon back the Coral Anemone, and then we have the Tang as a normal summon, which, by the way, we actually didn't even normal summon last turn. So we could have normal summoned to get another Extender Engrave, and to be totally honest, we didn't even really need a normal summon. There was really no point in going for a normal summon. You're just asking to play into Nibiru, which, speaking of Nibiru, I do want to actually talk more about on the next test hand, because that is a hand trap I think that hurts this deck the most. You don't really end on any interruptions. A lot of your interruptions are in your hand in the form of hand traps, as you guys have already been able to tell. And there are some ways you can play around Nibiru. And by play around, I mean not totally outright lose, which of course is better than the alternative, which is outright losing. So we'll see if we can showcase it in this next test hand. And it has to do with Marincess Crystal Heart being unaffected by our opponent's monster effects while it is in the EMZ. That is a pretty nice inherent effect that it just has. So deck is shuffled. Let's draw into our next hand. We open Seahorse Angler. That's pretty much perfect. That's all I need to be able to showcase you guys how this works. We could even do it with like Tang Seahorse or Tang and Angler. Or we could start with Skipper here, which I think for the sake of this, I don't think it matters if I start with 4-Mud Skipper. So I'll start with 4-Mud Skipper and also to be able to show you guys why I actually play 4-Mud Skipper. So this card says during your main phase, you can reveal a link monster in your extra deck, and if you do when you link summon this turn, you can treat this card as link material with the same name, type, and attribute as the revealed monster. And then if it's sent to the graveyard as link material, you can add a level 5 or higher Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand, which actually searches one of the side deck cards that I'm playing, which you guys will see in the deck profile that I'll be uploading later today, I believe. But we're going to reveal Blue Slug, so it becomes a water Cyberse, and it is named Marincess Blue Slug. So we'll link into the Blue Slug, and we'll activate the effect of Skipper to add a level 5 or higher Cyberse, which I think you guys might have seen what that extender was. I'm not sure, but if you haven't, it is Scripton. This card says we can banish the Cyberse monster in our grave except itself to summon it from the hand. And the nice thing about this is that it is searchable off of Skipper, and it's also a water monster. So since we were lucky enough to open up the Seahorse, we'll summon it to the zone that Slug points to, and then we will link Slug into a copy of Seahorse, or Sea Angel rather, to go ahead and search our field spell. And then once we add it, we'll just go ahead and activate it. Now at this point, let's pay attention to how many times we've summoned. We normaled the 4-Mud Skipper, linked it into Blue Slug, and then summoned the Seahorse and linked it into Sea Angel. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So our next summon will be our 5th summon, and this is a perfect hand to be able to showcase how to play around the Nibiru. So once we make our 5th summon, it's pretty much for our standard unaffected combo is always going to be the Crystal Heart. And again, when this card is in the extra monster zone, it is unaffected by our opponent's monster effect. So if they wanted to Nibiru here because they don't want to read our card, or they just don't feel like reading, or they can't read, whatever it may be, this will not go anywhere. But let's say we summon Scripton here because we want to save Silent Angler for last. So Scripton will banish the 4-Mud Skipper, or we could banish any one of the other monsters because this could potentially put it back. But I'll just banish the 4-Mud Skipper for now. Let's say they go ahead and Nibiru right here. They don't want us to keep going, right? They tribute off the Scripton, and we get a Nibiru token. No big deal, because what we can do from here is just summon the Silent Angler while we control a water monster, and then link these two into the Anemone, who is unaffected by card effects, and then we can go ahead and use the Anemone to bring this back. Now you're probably wondering, wait, what if they Nibiru right here? Well, that's a good question, because we'd still technically have these. Well, we'd have one extender burnt at this point, and it would be the Scripton to at least get to where we are now. So this would be banished, and this would still be in the grave. So let's say they Nibiru'd here. They get rid of the Crystal Heart, which is actually going to hurt a decent amount. What we could still do is summon the Silent Angler, and then link these off into a Marbled Rock to try and recover as best as we possibly can. I think that is the best point for them to Nibiru. Unfortunately, you know, it's going to be hard for us to get back the Crystal Heart. We can't bring it back with Splash Mage, unfortunately, because Splash Mage has to summon the monster in defense, which obviously linked monsters cannot exist in defense position. So we'll just bring out the Marbled Rock, and then we'll do our chain links as follows. We'll do chain link 1 Anemone, chain link 2 Battle Ocean. The Anemone is going to recycle. I'm going to put back the Crystal Heart here because we're going to want to have this in the extra deck to be able to like try again next turn. And then we can equip, let's see, we already have a Tang in hand, so I'm going to leave the Seahorse in grave. I'm only going to equip with these two, and then we're going to use Marbled Rock's effect to go ahead and put the Slug back in the extra deck to try to manage those resources in the extra deck as best as we possibly can. So we get here through Nibiru because we were able to open up those 2 water extenders, one of which we were able to search off of 4-Mud Skipper. And we still have a Bell in hand, and this card also has a neat effect where it says, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, we can send a Marincess monster from hand to the graveyard for that battle. Monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Also, we take no battle damage. So if they try to beat over this, They don't have two monsters that are over 2,700, we can at least stop the attack and maybe survive next turn. And then let's say we do that, we draw a wave for turn, which is great. Marbled Rock can just activate effect to add this back, because then our next turn we're just going to normal summon the Mandarin and try to get to our unaffected board again. And having Crystal Heart back in the extra deck is going to help a lot to make that much easier. So yeah, that's it for that test hand. Let's go ahead and do another one. Nice little showcase there of, you know, how Nibiru impacts this deck, and it's not always game over. Alright, the deck has been shuffled. Let's draw into our next test hand and see if we can showcase something else. We have 1-for-1 Silent Angler, Ash Blossom, Seahorse, and the Battle Ocean. So let's do worst case scenario here, right? We go 1-for-1, we pitch the Silent Angler. 1-for-1 is kind of an Ash Magnet, let's be honest. So this is actually going to showcase what we can still do if we don't open up any water extenders with one of our starters. And starting with Seahorse is actually really great because this card doesn't do that much, but because of that, it's kind of hand trap resilient. And this card is also very resource efficient on its own. This is a 1-card Link 4, and you guys will see what I mean. So we're going to normal summon the Seahorse. And then we'll link it off for a copy of Slug. Slug will add back the Seahorse. Here we hope they don't have a bell as well. Then we'll summon the Seahorse. And normally we would link it into Sea Angel, which we technically don't have to do right now because we already opened the Combat Ocean. So we'll just go ahead and link these off for Splash Mage just to save a resource in the extra deck and save 1 extra summon. Even though if they have Nibiru here, they have Nibiru, and we're going to lose our whole field. There's no getting around it. So we'll activate Splash Mage. That'll bring back a Cyberse monster from our grave in defense if its effect's negated, and we are locked into Cyberse for the rest of the turn. And then we'll link the Splash Mage and the Seahorse into Anemone, and Anemone will bring back the Splash Mage. We'll activate the Battle Ocean, and then we're going to go ahead and link into our Bubble Reef one more time. And we still get to our Link 4. It is affected by card effects. It can be affected by our opponent's card effects, which is unfortunate, but it's still better than nothing. We're going to use Anemone to add back the Seahorse so we can do it pretty much again on our next turn. And since we already have 2 other waters in our grave, I'm just going to equip both the Anemone and the Slug. Actually, I'm going to leave the Anemone in the grave so we can banish it on our opponent's turn and have it as a resource to revive if our Bubble Reef survives. So during their standby phase, we'll banish the draw. We draw a Meister, so we have Ash Meister for them, and we still have a Seahorse in hand to be able to play off of next turn. Then we'll banish draw during our standby phase and draw for our turn. No more engine cards there, unfortunately. Just more hand traps, which is going to happen, which is why I kind of wanted to showcase this specific hand. If we would have drawn a water, we could have brought this back and tried to OTK. But not really a whole lot we can do there. Well, technically, no, not a whole lot we can do, because if we use the Anemone and pitch the Seahorse, we are locked into waters for the rest of the turn. If we bring this back, right? We can't go into Transcode. But that hand is a perfect example to showcase what you can do with basically just a card like Seahorse, or if you open up Tang, because Tang just dumps Seahorse, then you basically do the same thing. The only nice thing about opening with Tang is you have the opportunity to get a Mandarin off the top of the deck or something like Wave, which makes your board that much better, especially if you can't make your Bubble Reef with Crystal Heart. The Wave can sort of act as like a pseudo Crystal Heart, because when it resolves, all of your monsters are unaffected by your opponent's card effects. So, and for what is potentially going to be the last test hand of this video, I want to showcase to you guys how you could potentially make D-Shifter live. Now, I did not come up with this idea on my own. I got the idea from a video that was uploaded to a channel called Papa Goat YGO, and he uploaded a deck profile of a 6-0 Marincess deck, and the guy that piloted the deck, his name was Alvin, and he had a really nice list, and he played against some very competitive decks and ended up going 6-0, so congrats to him on the incredible performance. But at the end of the profile, he mentioned that he had been sort of like labbing up a shifter combo with this deck, and while he didn't showcase how to do the combo, in my head I kind of imagined what it might look like. So I'll showcase to you guys how you could potentially, at least from my perspective, make D-Shifter live. But I did get the original idea from Alvin. Again, the profile is uploaded on Papa Goat YGO's channel, and I'll leave a link to both his channel and the video down in the description below. So definitely go show him some love. Go show both of them some love. So I'll shuffle up the deck here, And we're going to need actually 2 specific cards to be able to do this. One is going to be the Mandarin or Seahorse and Blue Tang, or it can be Mandarin and Blue Tang. Doesn't really make too big of a difference. And then we'll just draw some random cards here. Actually, let's just do 3 Skullmeister because it really doesn't matter. Obviously, one of these cards needs to be D-Shifter. I don't have D-Shifters next to me right now. So just imagine that this card right here is going to be D-Shifter for this specific hand. In order to activate D-Shifter, we need to have no cards in our grave, so we'll go ahead and show you guys how to do that. So we're going to normal summon Blue Tang, and we're going to activate its effects to go ahead and send a copy of Mandarin. And again, if we already opened Mandarin, we just send Seahorse instead. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and link into this copy of Slug. Chainlink 1 will be Slug targeting Tang, and Chainlink 2 will be Tang engraved to reveal top 3. So let's see if we get anything. We don't. No worries. We're going to add back the Tang, summon out the Seahorse, and Seahorse is going to link itself into a copy of Sea Angel. If I could locate the card in my extra deck, there it is. Sea Angel effect will activate, and we'll go ahead and grab our field spell, and basically the center point of the deck, if you will. At least for the most part. We'll activate the Battle Ocean, and then from here we're going to activate Mandarin effect engraved targeting Sea Angel. And then we'll link these off to go into our Crystal Heart, who is currently unaffected by monster effects, our opponent's monster effects, while it's in the EMZ. And then we'll link both of those into Anemone, who is actually unaffected by our opponent's card effects. And then we'll use its effect to bring back the Crystal Heart, and then we'll link one more time into the final piece of our combo, which is Bubble Reef. And then we have some chain links to activate. So obviously we have Chainlink 1 Anemone, Chainlink 2 Field Spell, and the reason why I always Chainlink like that is because I want to chain block the Anemone from getting hit with Ghost Spell or Meister. And the card I'm going to add back is going to be the Seahorse while we equip everything except for the Anemone, and I'll show why that is going to be the case, because during our opponent's standby phase, we're going to banish the last card in our graveyard to draw, and that's when we'll activate our hypothetical D-Shifter on their turn whenever we need to. Now, I'm wondering if there's a way, and maybe Alvin himself knows, if there's a way to make D-Shifter live before the end of your turn. That way you don't have to deal with the repercussions of D-Shifter when it comes back to you. That would be ideal, but I'm not sure if there is a way to do that. You'd probably have to hard open the field spell and not make Sea Angel. That's just my guess. I could be totally wrong, though. So now you're probably wondering, you hit them with a D-Shifter, that's great. They probably ended their turn right then and there because D-Shifter is that strong, but how are we going to play through our own D-Shifter when it comes back to us? And my main answer to that, and again, I got this idea from Alvin, is that the Bubble Reef is just going to keep gaining 600 each time you lose a card to D-Shifter. So you could normal summon Tang, banish a card from the deck, there's another 600. You could summon Seahorse from the hand, and then you could summon this from the hand, and then link this into a Slug, get another 600. Link these into an Anemone, link those into a Transcode, and keep piling on the attack. And try to basically OTK your opponent that way. That might not be the best idea, but in theory, that's potentially how you could do it. So I think I covered all the bases in this test hand video. Let me just check my checklist. One other thing I wanted to talk about before I wrap this video up is other potential engines that I was playing in this deck before I made this video. The first one was the Sky Striker engine, which I had since removed from the deck to make space for cards like Phantasme, and cards like Wave. Now, I wasn't playing Wave in the previous versions of this deck, just because I thought the Sky Striker cards were better until I realized drawing things like Eagle Booster or Engage off of your Bubble Reef is just terrible. Eagle Booster in theory is better than this card because this card can brick, and it's much easier to make Eagle Booster live. But since I added in Phantasme, playing the Striker cards didn't make any sense, and if I draw this card off Bubble Reef, it's always live, unlike the Eagle Booster would be. It just kind of sits there and laughs at you in your hand. The Frog engine, I'm not a huge fan of, just because I think the amount of hand resources it takes is just not worth it whatsoever, and I think it's going to make the deck more inconsistent. And I'm also not playing Pascalis because I just generally think it's one of the worst playable Marincess monsters that you could run. Even if you open up Pascalis plus a Water Extender, it is not full Unaffected Combo. whereas if you open up these 3 with any water extender, it is. So, and it's also just like a hand trap magnet. If it gets Valor impermed or gamma'd, you're just in a really bad spot overall. Yes, the field spell recursion effect is nice, for adding back wave is cool, but like, you're never really getting that far probably if you start with Basilisk, to be totally honest. And drawing on its own is really terrible. Again, you could say the same thing about Mandarin, but Mandarin has much more value because a card like Blue Tang exists, whereas if you send Basilisk off of Blue Tang, you get literally nothing out of it. So I think that's all I wanted to mention. I was also considering playing a trap build, but I don't like playing a die roll dependent deck where if I have to go second with all those traps, I lose to combo, or any other deck that's just a little bit more higher ceiling than mine. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was possibly playing Cyframe Gamma to protect Signet Mining in 1-for-1, but I don't know if I'll make the switch to that at this current point. But that is going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out one of these videos popping up on the bottom of the screen right now if you want to see more of my content. And as always, guys, Winterkill signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And last but not least, I want to give a special shout out to our Divine level channel members, and they are Cadillac CD4, Pony Stark, Keith Siggers, and Daryl Bass. Thank you guys so much for your extremely generous support.